Let's talk for a moment about the experience of feeling like you are drowning in motherhood. There's always a need, there's always a want. There are always tasks that need to be accomplished and needs from a baby or multiple children. So we get this visual or this even sensation of drowning. My name is Tessa. I'm a Catholic mom of 4. My family and I are teaching ourselves self-sufficiency, simple homemaking, and intentional living. A lot of the way that people talk about drowning in motherhood feeds into that, but maybe there's a better way to think about it that could help us get through it constructively instead of thinking about it as something that's going to kill us. What I have found in the course of having 4 children, I needed to find a way to not feel like motherhood was going to kill me, and instead think of it as something that you're sinking into, embracing deliberately. You can reframe those same experiences that are hard and see a certain value in them. The way that we think about things is the way that we react to them. And when we react positively to things, we do not have such a stressed out experience of them. There's nothing wrong with something being hard. There's nothing wrong with struggling through something. It's entirely about the takeaway experience, and we can determine a lot of that takeaway experience. I have to remind myself why I'm doing it. Knowing your why is the most important thing. This is where I begin to remind myself about the value of the time I spend with my children and the tiny mundane things that I do with my children and for my family in my home. Henry David Thoreau says, "It is not enough to be busy, so are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about?" What we do matters. How we do it matters. Being intentional with our time matters. It's not just about filling our days with things. It's about enriching our lives and the lives of our children. Wendell Berry says, "The family is the smallest kingdom, the smallest economy, the smallest school. It is where we learn how to live." And how true is that? I want my kids to grow up thinking that their family life was the best thing. Not to think that there was never anything wrong with it or it was never hard for anybody, but just to know its value. I think about this often because our children learn their values from watching us. To the age that my children are, I have an almost 6-year-old, I have a 4-year-old, an almost 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And right now they all simply learn from watching me and seeing what I do and how I react to things. And then they do the same thing. They mirror all of those things. I see their attitude, that's my attitude. I see what they play, that's what I do all day. Everything that I do, I see coming back at me from my children. So if they do that with all these little things that I don't even talk about, I just do them, how much more are they picking up on my attitudes about things? And that is completely natural. That makes total sense. There's actually a really interesting quote by an author and psychologist named Daniel Siegel. He says, "Where attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connection grows." And what this means is that where we put our attention and the things that we spend our time on, our brain and neural synapses fire along certain routes, and they build connections that outlive that moment. Your brain literally wires itself towards certain things. So if I want to sit here and talk about drowning in motherhood and keep using words like that, drowning in motherhood, or barely surviving, or that I'm just getting by, these are wiring my brain to think of motherhood and these struggles and difficulties as negative things instead of thinking of them as my battles that I am winning for my children and for my family. I think that we have to acknowledge the truth of the difficulty and not diminish that. I hate to use the word, but I'm not trying to gaslight myself into thinking that everything is good and easy. But I want to always be mindful of the value of what I'm trying to do so that my intention and attention can stay where it needs to be. What has more value in this world than people? As a Christian and a Catholic, I believe that the creatures that God made that have an immortal, eternal soul are human beings. We are made in the image and likeness of God. What on earth could I possibly give better attention to than my people, my husband, and my children? This is my good work. Having the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mother, to pour my time and attention into my people, that is the highest value that I personally put into this world. Now, if I value it as highly as I just said, then no matter how hard it is a good. In the same way that our attention wires our brains, splitting our attention, among other things, is so detrimental to the ability to focus. It is well documented in psychological studies that we cannot multitask. We cannot split our attention, and when we are multitasking, our attention is continuously flicking back and forth between the different objects of our attention. Now, in motherhood, there are many things that feel like multitasking. Speaking to a child while you fold the laundry, cooking dinner while you teach, cleaning and supervising. That kind of thing is happening continuously. That kind of multitasking, we might not be able to get away from, and that's fine. But what we can avoid is completely splitting our attention outside of that realm. But if we're trying to keep up with what somebody else is doing, or if we keep going on social media throughout the day and paying attention to all these other things that are outside of our wheelhouse, and also manage our home, spend time with our spouses, that level of split attention can only harm us. My challenge to myself is to allow myself to drown in motherhood, if you want to keep using that phrase, to fall into it, to embrace it, to live it. The best thing that I've ever done for my motherhood is to stop trying to do more and just focus on the quality of what I am doing for my family inside my own home. The rest of it is secondary. This is my job. These are my people, and I love them. What is it that G.K. Chesterton says? The most extraordinary thing in the world is an ordinary man and an ordinary woman and their ordinary children. There is something extraordinary about this vocation of parenthood and motherhood. So that's my challenge to myself, and maybe also a challenge to you. I hope this kind of makes sense. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know which things have helped you to embrace motherhood or parenthood and to not feel it as a negative, but instead something that you can sink into and embrace with joy. If you're interested in more ramblings, be sure to hit subscribe. I'm definitely thinking about these things on a regular basis, and I want motherhood and parenthood to be seen as a great and wonderful vocation again.